All right, welcome to my shop. It's been about a year since I bought my Shapeoko, sitting over there in the box. For the last couple of months, since I've been working from home, I've been building a torsion box table for my CNC router. I'll throw some pictures of that up here shortly. I wanted to do a little bit of an unboxing, maybe a little time lapse of that, and as an introduction to what is hopefully going to be the start of my YouTube channel. So without further ado, here we go. Okay, so got it all unboxed, got it laid out here on my newly built table. I'm gonna start going through the boxes, checking everything that's there, pulling up the get started, and I'm gonna start assembling the CNC today. I bought my Shapeoko in July of 2019. It is now September 2020, and the Shapeoko has been sitting in a box on the floor of my shop taunting me for a year. Meanwhile, Carbide 3D has been busy developing new add-ons and upgrades. The first one is the HDZ, which I believe is essentially the Beaver CNC HDZ. The guys from Beaver CNC joined the Carbide team sometime last year, and it's a significant upgrade from the stock Z. It replaces the belt and spring V-wheel based stock Z-axis with a ball screw and linear rail design. This is what I'm assembling here. Now, that said, Carbide 3D is no longer shipping that V-wheel and belt-driven Z-axis and has now moved to the Z Plus as the stock, which uses a lead screw design and linear rails. In December, they released the Bit Setter, which is a device that automates setting the tool height during tool changes. I went ahead and picked that up when it was in stock, so I'll have to install that as well. The most recent upgrade is the Bit Runner. This one is interesting because Carbide has said that they aren't going to be making anymore. That said, I guess I had good timing when I ordered this. Basically, this device enables you to control the spindle via G-code instead of having to manually switch the spindle on and off. Since my machine is a year old, my Carbide motion board is missing the necessary connector for the Bit Runner. This is going to require me to do some soldering. My soldering station is back at the house and is a complete disaster. I won't subject anyone to that, so I will do that tonight off camera and come back in the morning to do the installation of that. Because of all of these upgrades, I'm going to have to bounce around between a couple different installation instructions and build documents. Now it's time to pull out the rails. Man, I didn't realize how beefy these rails actually were. They're really solid. I was really impressed with the build quality as well as the finish quality on these parts when I pulled them out of the boxes. Because my Shapeoko was older, it didn't have any of the tapped holes necessary to support the cable chain. So here I am installing the adhesive tabs that came with the HDZ setup. In addition to the HDZ, it also came with new inductive end stops, which are really nice, no contact end stops. But in order to do so, I had to kind of disassemble the pre-assembled wiring a little bit. Well, let me tell you, I really dislike taking apart cable chains. It's so tedious. With all the wiring sorted, it was time to move on to assemble the base plate and main structure. This went together pretty easily, didn't have any trouble. It was pretty straightforward and self-explanatory. It was a little bit more wiggly than I expected it to be, but I solved that by putting a piece of like 1/4-inch plastic, hard plastic, underneath the entire machine. Some folks will use like insulation, that rigid foam insulation, to kind of give a better base support. Regardless, for something that gets shipped in the mail, you know, it went together really easily and it was sturdy enough for what I needed to do. I was having a little bit of trouble getting the feet in, and it turns out that the threaded holes for the feet was a little gunked up, so I got out my handy dandy little tap and die set and just, you know, ran it through there, cleaned out all of the powder coating that was gumming up in those holes. So that's the gantry completed. I had to do a little bit of finagling because I ordered a bunch of upgrades. So had to kind of bounce back and forth between the HDZ and the XXL instructions and kind of figure out where they kind of crossed over. And so that took a little bit of extra time. I'd also bought multiple upgrades. So the stock V wheels and eccentric nuts was something that was called out in a video that I had watched. So I ordered some replacements that were supposedly better, and I figured I might as well install those now. So on the eccentric nuts, you can see the stock one is here on the right, and the upgrade that I got is here on the left. Now the stock one doesn't have a mark to show you where the top is. The upgrade does. I don't remember where I got these. It was a while ago. I'll try to put a link down in the description. And I'm not sure if Carbide 3D is now shipping with these better nuts or not, because the HDZ came with this style. So I need to go back and look at my notes and see what I've got. Also, I got better V wheels. So here's the stock, and here are my upgrades. These are a little bit harder, a little bit more durable than the ones that Carbide was shipping January or July of last year. Are they better? I don't know. We'll see. Might as well put them on now rather than having to take the whole thing apart later. I'm gonna grab a bite to eat, get some lunch, and I'll come back to reassemble.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Oh, that was delicious lunch. Okay, I'm going to put the side rails on and get everything kind of connected together from the mechanical perspective, and probably start on the wiring. I kind of expected this to be a little bit harder than it was, but this step actually turned out to be pretty straightforward and easy. In addition, once I got everything connected, I didn't have a whole lot of squaring to do. Like, by default, it kind of came out of the box pretty close to square. I think it might have been maybe a 16th off, but which is practically nothing. So I was real happy with that. One of the other upgrades that I purchased were upgraded steel belts. These were recommended by another YouTuber, and I don't know. I don't really have any thoughts one way or the other. Apparently, Carbide had been shipping fiberglass, then they switched to metal, and now they're back to fiberglass. So we'll see what happens. I still have the original fiberglass belts that came with the kit, as well as plenty of leftover steel thread belts. Time will tell to see whether or not they are a source of pain for me or not. So far, they're not. One thing to note is that Carbide 3D probably should have included 3 of those adhesive tabs, but it's not like a huge problem. Just that cable chain sags a lot when you start getting long on the x-axis. Oh goody, more cable chains. I think throughout this process I probably opened and closed these chains at least 5 or 6 times, and every time it just takes a long time to do that. Even with a screwdriver, sometimes they don't want to pop open right, but you know, it really does make a difference in keeping your wiring neat. The situation I had was just, you know, retrofitting everything, so I ended up doing a lot of wiring loom work that some folks won't have to do if they go for a fully stock system or one that comes pre-configured for a lot of these upgrades, which are now standard. One of the final pieces to install was the bit setter probe. The instructions are pretty clear on where you need to put it, how you set it up, and get it installed. It's pretty quick and easy. Just kind of make some adjustments to make sure that the router can actually reach it,
and then wire it and run that wire back over to where the control box would be. All right, that just about wraps up the mechanicals. Now it's time to go and take care of the soldering, install the plug for the bit setter, and bring it back out, get it hooked up, and then it'll be on to the squaring and tramming and all of the sort of dialing in that you have to do to get a CNC working. All right, so last night went ahead and made all the upgrades to my existing carbide motion board. Added a couple extra headers too. I don't know if I'll ever use them, but I figured since I was in there I might as well do it. I didn't record any of it because, well, my desk inside is a disaster. One of these days I'll clean it up and then maybe I'll do some more videos out there. In there, rather. But now we're going to get everything hooked up. It's kind of a windy day outside today. I will install the carbide motion. I will install the bit runner. This is going to involve drilling some holes in my rails and tapping them. A little scary, but that should be fine. And yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and fire up time lapse, and I left the cable inside, so I'll have to go get that. But yeah, good stuff. So the first step here is to get the carbide motion enclosure wired up and mounted on the left side of the machine, which is what I'm doing here. Again, pretty easy. The plugs go where they're supposed to go. Everything's silkscreened onto the carbide motion board. Yeah, the connectors are all the same, but it's pretty easy to get them in the right place, especially if you've done any work with 3D printers or anything like that, which I have. Now, I'm about to trigger some people. I'm going to move the gantry with the motors connected. I know it's generally understood to be a bad idea. It's not something I do on a regular basis. I've never had a problem with my 3D printer doing anything. Maybe the Shapeoko is a little more sensitive to that. I apologize if you were triggered. So here I am marking the middle of my rail on the right side. And then I'm going to come in and make two marks 155 millimeters apart for the bit runner so I can drill the holes and tap them. Okay, so yeah, I'm a bit of an Adam Savage fanboy, and I'm using one of the markers that he recently pimped on his channel. They are as good as he says they are. It is the Pica Ink deep hole marker. I'll throw an affiliate link down at the bottom because, you know, hey, I'll pimp them too. I really like the product. They're great. And no, I wasn't paid to say that. I don't have any sponsors. This is all stuff that I've bought on my own. I just figured it's a shout out to a good product. Also, handy tip. You can use isopropyl rubbing alcohol to remove permanent marker like Sharpies and Pica ink from most surfaces to, you know, leave no trace. I know this is a little ridiculous. I just like to get it off and make it all nice and clean looking. I don't have one of those little, you know, automatic punch tools. Well, at least I didn't when I made the video. Here, I just pulled the lag bolt out of my screw box and use this hammer to make a little divot so that my drill bit doesn't wander when I make the hole. It's a pretty easy tip. Aluminum is really soft, so really easy to do. I also didn't use any like cutting fluid or anything on this. It's just some thin aluminum. It wasn't that big of a deal. It probably would have been a little bit smoother. I don't know. I didn't have any problems. Another little tip, I don't know if it's a pro tip or not, is to use a step drill bit to chamfer the edge of the hole that you just drilled. I find that it helps with the tap. It makes it a little bit easier. Also kind of gets rid of the burrs on the edge. Just makes it a little bit nicer hole. Again, not using any cutting fluid. I'm sure somebody's going to scream at me for that. But I didn't think it was necessary. It's just one little hole. I'm doing it by hand. And, you know, you go slow. Aluminum's a little grabby. So take your time, clear out the chips, and you shouldn't have any problems. Doing a little cleanup after I had got everything set up there in the inset. Just kind of getting prepared to do the final run of everything, and so just busy bee up there sorting everything out. Like I mentioned earlier, my machine, when it went together pretty square already. So here I am just checking it again real quick up top. And yeah, I was real happy. My rails were parallel. My x-axis was pretty well even. And so here I am just kind of doing the initial adjustments to make sure that all the pieces were aligned as well as they could be at this point, and get it ready for running that first job. I always like to do sort of one final little chase of the threads just to make sure that they're completely cleaned out and that they thread smoothly and are clean. Just one thing I do. I don't know how many people do that. Just a little trick I've realized. And we're going to do another little deburr here after the tapping, and the holes are ready to go. And here I was thinking I was going to be a little smart and put one in and then use it, and then I realized, oh yeah, I'm going to have to deal with the cords on the other side. So let's put that one over there, and then we'll do the other side, which is a lot more accessible. doing the final run of the control cable over to the bit setter here. I ended up running it in the gap between the base plate and the frames. Fits pretty good. I ended up putting a couple of pieces of wood in there that just kind of hold it in there by friction. Yeah, so some of you may notice what I'm about to do here. And it is ill-advised. Yeah, so I did it. I ran my router power cable through the cable chains with all of the signal wires. It was a bad idea. I didn't realize it was a bad idea until long after I had taken this video and figured out that when you do this, you introduce a lot of noise into your signal path, which causes your system to disconnect in the middle of you surfacing your wasteboard. So, yeah. Here I am just kind of getting everything set up, getting the Carbide motion software installed, getting my laptop hooked up to it, kind of doing all of the little bits and pieces of software configuration that you have to do before you actually make the thing really move. And here I am, excitedly running to grab my wife, who will be, shall we say, not as impressed as I was.
Almost. I'm getting ready to push the connect to machine button right now. It's a historic moment. Only if you want to. They're not mine. They're certainly not
Mine? Mine?
mine.
Mine?
Turn it on. Camera. Homing cycle failed.
Now, I love my wife. She's an amazing woman, and she puts up with an endless amount of my shit. So the fact that she was like, all right, call me when it's ready, that's just, how it goes. I should have done a little bit more preparation to make sure that it was ready to actually work and working properly before I called her over. Now, I had just connected things up. I had not gone in and told Carbide Motion that I had an HDZ. I didn't really do any sort of configuration, so it's really no surprise that it went the wrong direction to home initially. But I made that setting pretty quick, and here we go on the first homing sequence. Remember, kids, make sure that you have those edge stops aligned properly. Some fast thinking here, pulled a piece of metal out of my belt there and just held it up to stop it. So, yeah, time to make some adjustments. Got some adjustments to make.
Z was good.
With the end stops sorted out and the machine homing properly, the next step was to configure the bit setter. In order to do this, I needed to put a bit into the collet, which is what I failed to do the first time. So here I am. I'm going to go ahead and insert, I think this is a 1/4 inch end mill, and use it to set the offset. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my metric tape measure and I'm going to measure the offset and then adjust in the settings by that much, and that's what I'm doing here. With the offsets corrected, I go ahead and do another initialization. It's going to go through, and I just barely hit it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to re-jog the machine and record the position of where it's at so that I can hit that directly on the center. And here we go. All the offsets, bam, right in the center. Now it's time for the stickers. One of my favorite parts and sort of the final step of the build process. Yeah, I'm being a little particular here by using the machinist square to make sure that it's, parallel and aligned properly. And here we go. The Hello World.
go.